All right, greetings, friends. I got a good one for you today. The guest that I'm talking to today is named Jon Rasmussen. Frequently just goes by Shaman Jon. He's a professional shaman living in Monterey, California, and serving the area around Monterey, California. Though in our conversation, he clarified that he can provide his services to people from anywhere. So you don't have to live in the California area. You can call in, however, just get in touch with him. And I'm going to provide all of that information in the description box right below this video. So you're looking at a video, right below it's a little box. Look in that box. All the information is going to be in there. So I actually discovered Jon many years ago while I was just cruising around the internet looking up shamanism, and I found all kinds of interesting people and people with insights and thoughts. But it was Jon was the one that I really ended up spending the most time exploring. And I'm not exactly sure why that is, except now that he and I have actually spoken, it was interesting because I felt like his mind works similar to mine. Somehow I picked that up in watching his videos, and I think that's probably why he resonated with me. Interesting thing about Jon is he has a degree in electrical engineering and worked as an engineer for a while. So he has that systems kind of thinking, and he is a skeptical guy. And a skeptical shaman? Yeah, he's a skeptical shaman, man, which makes him, I just so appreciated this conversation. I thought it was fascinating and informative. He shares some insights into how he perceives his own, I don't know if Christianity is the right word, but his own, he uses Jesus Christ in his practices, which I thought was really fascinating. I would not have expected that coming from a shamanistic worldview. That's really, really interesting stuff to me. But just the whole talk was great. It was 1 hour of just condensed, fascinating conversation that I think everybody out there is going to really enjoy. I will also throw in quickly before shutting up and getting to Jon, because you're all here for Shaman Jon. You're not here for me. I know I got a pretty face, man, but you're not here for me. You're here for Shaman Jon. I do want to say that I had some technical difficulties right before our interview started. I don't know why. I've never had the problems that I had, so I had to, I didn't have time to figure it all out, so I had to make some adjustments with the lighting and with the camera. I had to use a different camera, and I think the quality of the video on me kind of sucks. That's not the usual quality of my videos. If you look back, it's just a one-time thing, but it's all good, man, because Shaman Jon looked cool, and he got the beautiful blue sky behind him. Check out all the birds that fly by as he's talking. It's really cool. But yeah, that's about it, man. This was an excellent, fascinating conversation that I think seekers everywhere will really enjoy. And that's about it. Let's get to Shaman Jon. Quit listening to this guy yammer. All right, peace out. Oh, wait. But I want to say I hope you are all having triumphant, victorious, happy 2022s, and I hope you are moving forward bravely and confidently towards your goals. And I mean that in all seriousness. We're living in challenging times. I understand that, but go for it. Make your dreams happen. Don't let anything stop you. Let's do it, friends. Let's do it. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. Peace out, everybody. Here is Shaman Jon Rasmussen. All right, Jon, joining us from sunny California. It's looking beautiful where you're at, man. Before we get into the deep questions, and I've got some deep questions coming today, could you give us a little bit of a background on what you were doing before you started the shamanistic path, how you got into the shamanistic path? And I'm really curious about that 1979 Kundalini awakening story.
Yeah. I had a strange childhood. I think you know, if back then they had it, it was a thing. I would have been on the spectrum, you know, of sorts, the autism spectrum or what have you. So a lot of different experiences, and had a couple of accidents that you know, I call near death experiences that helped me to see things and kind of get a perspective on things that I think was a little bit unusual for shamans around the world, since, you know, as far as we know, but unusual for a suburban kid in Western, you know, North America and California. And so you know, nobody had any context for it from where I was, you know, my family or anyone around me. And then, yeah, in 1979, I was laying in bed, and I was doing I did a lot of meditation. it would be considered like transcendental meditation, but for me, it was just a way to like be comfortable in my body because I had severe headaches every day and I just had all kinds of problems, and I would just figure out ways to kind of get away from it and zone out. So I was by then pretty well practiced in that, I guess you might say. And I'm laying in bed and I'm like doing my thing. I'm kind of like going into a meditative state. And then all of a sudden I just had this like electrical explosion. It seemed like a light flashing, my head popping. My first thought was I just died, like I'm dead. You know, I felt the being to my left. I looked and then like it kind of went across the ceiling like gold popping electricity, and I was like, wow, okay, so I didn't get electrocuted, I'm still in bed, I'm not dead, cool. And I just went to sleep.
And roughly how old were you at that point?
So that was, you know, what was that, 16 or so.
Okay, all right, sorry, please go ahead.
No worries. And you know, and I just kind of forgot about it. I was like, oh, that was, you know, that was weird, whatever. And then just forgot about it. But later realized, you know, when I started studying a lot of these things, that is, you know, what a classic sort of Kundalini experience or Kundalini awakening. And later I was studying in a guru tradition, Hindu, you know, tradition, and was talking to the guru and this and that, and sort of asked, you know, what was that so and so like in their lineage, like was that one of their who came to me that day and like did this? And they said yes. And so I said, oh, okay, you know, cool. So
they were able to identify it.
Yeah, it made sense, you know. Because in shamanism in general, you know, we recognize time's nonlinear, it's non-local. You can go back in time, forward in time, and things can happen. It's not just cause and effect, you know, like what happened today was because of what I did yesterday. But like what happened today could be because of something I do 10 years from now. So it made sense in that regard. Okay. Yeah, that somebody from the future would be going, okay, we got to get this guy started. Let's go in and zap him and you know, start him on the path. And certainly at that point, I mean, I did begin to study I went into Yogananda's tradition, autobiography of the yogi, and then led me to several others. And so that was the deal. You know, it led me on a path of discovery and practice and intense, you know, learning, and the beginnings.
It's interesting. I then want to ask how you got into shamanism specifically, but what I thought of when you mentioned that it was on your left side was I've researched near-death experiences quite a lot, and they all say that, well, not they all say, they frequently say that a person as they're dying will look to the left, and that there seems to be something with the left side, which I find really peculiar, and I've never been able to make sense of that, but it just jumped into my mind when you mentioned that.
Yeah, well, you remind me, there's a technique in our shamanic practice for doing destiny retrieval, for going forward in time or you can go anywhere on someone's timeline, and then you can choose possible timelines in the future and try to pick that and bring that in energetically to help influence that. And it's called left eye to left eye tracking.
Oh, wow.
And it's the same thing. Why the left eye? Why? You know, why does it? And we look into each other's left eye, and it must be just somehow the way the nervous system is wired to the energy body, right, through the chakra system, etc., like the conduits between the energy body and the physical nervous system and brain and such. And so maybe it's similar. Maybe there's something having to do with the left eye or the left side being an access point to the soul.
That's interesting. Yeah, even Emanuel Swedenborg had something big with the left eye. I'm not exactly clear on what it is, but I follow a Swedenborgian, I guess is what you'd call it, and he talks frequently about the left eye situation. But okay, so then you start down the spiritual path. How did you wind up with a shamanistic tradition?
I studied a lot of different healing modalities, just kind of everything I could get my hands on in spiritual traditions and wisdom traditions. And I was just drinking it in
and this was, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt. But this was while you were also studying electrical engineering?
Yeah. So it was my late teens, 20s, all through college when, you know, I just got directed in that, you know, for work, you know, for whatever life. And, I was just like people were going out partying on the weekends and evenings, and I was reading and I was practicing and I was doing stuff and healing, hands-on healing, all kinds of things. And so I just naturally really loved it, and I wanted to learn everything I could, and just kind of went wherever the wind blew me in that way. And shamanism in particular came about because I had been to one of my healers, who's an energy medicine guy, and done a lot of work on my physical body, because a lot of accidents, a lot of death experiences. I was kind of messed up in a lot of ways. So, he was helping me out. He did a great job. Brilliant guy, Dr. Richard Baldwin. And but one day I go, hey, what am I really here to do? Because I was by then working in engineering and not really feeling it. And I knew that there might be something else I prefer to do. And he went off into his altered state, talked to his guides the way he worked, and he came back and he said, they're giving me the words mediator of souls between the worlds. And at that point I was like, what? Like, I don't know what to do with that. I'm not sure what kind of job that is.
Put that on a job resume, huh?
Yeah, no. And he didn't know either, because he was just channeling this. So he's like, I don't know, but don't worry. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Like, at some point you'll figure it out. I was like, okay, that's cool. And I kind of forgot about it. And literally a few years later, I was on one of my lunch breaks at work up in Mountain View, and I went into the East West bookstore, which one of my favorite, since the Bodhi Tree bookstore in LA, and East, like, this is where I read everything I could get my hands on, basically. And I was walking around going, geez, I've kind of read everything in here. I wonder if, but I always look just to see what's up. And there was a book on the table, brand new book called Shaman Healer Sage by Dr. Alberto Vialdo. And I looked through it a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. This looks neat, And I read it, and it was like, oh my God, this comprehensively covers everything else I've ever studied in every single like, this is brilliant. It's like, it's all of it in one efficient package. And I was like, this is amazing. I got to meet this guy. And I got into his workshop literally 2 weeks later at Esalen, which is unheard of. Like, I got the last seat somehow, and I drove down there, and condors were flying by. By then I had done all the Castaneda stuff. So I was into all the the signs and the symbols and all that kind of stuff, just as a spectator. But I get to the workshop, I sit down, Alberto sits down, and he very first thing comes out of his mouth is, a shaman is just a mediator of souls between the worlds, which was the same thing I was told 3 years ago.
Same words, huh?
Same words. And that's kind of, like, I'm a very practical, pragmatic person. I'm very skeptical by nature. I don't go easily into something, like things have to make sense to me, and have to line up and match. And like, I've always been that way, or I won't jump in, and this was like, oh geez, I didn't really want it. It scared me. I didn't want to be a shaman or see myself as that, but I couldn't deny that that synchronicity. So I asked Alberto, what do you think? And I had done we did some demonstrations in the class before that, before lunch, when I asked Alberto, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't think, and I was trying to read somebody, and I thought I just had to make something up not to look ridiculous. And so I was telling him what I saw. And it turned out to be like completely accurate and stuff. Alberto's like, yeah, dude, this is what you already, because of all my previous trainings, like, you already mostly have this. You just need to finish this training and get initiated. And I was like, wow, okay. So I dove in, maxed out all my credit cards to learn, and go do his program, the Healing the Light Body School at the Four Winds, which is, to me, just brilliant training. And with the Caro Indians from Peru, who do the initiations and connect us to their lineage that goes back, tens of thousands of years, and are very powerful. They come to me in dreams, like a lot of stuff. Wow. Then a lot of stuff just starts happening, and you kind of, no matter how skeptical and, which I continue to be today, it's like something will happen that kind of goes, yeah, no, this is worth it. You should do it. It's real. And so it's been that ever since. That's word of mouth, just people getting results and telling other people, and kind of keeps me in it, basically doing it.
That's cool. Yeah. Like, what you said about being skeptical. That's actually one of the reasons why I've always wanted to talk to you, and this is a really cool opportunity because I've watched some of your videos, read your stuff, and I probably would have checked out your services if I lived down in California. But so I like that you have a skeptical approach. You also have that electrical engineering background, and so I think as actually something you mentioned that's a good entryway into what I'm really trying to understand. Like I'm really trying to understand how reality is actually constructed to the like shamanistic viewpoint. I know that's huge, but like there's actually a little something to pick up on, I think, because you mentioned the condors and the animal signs, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, I've long read that that is an aspect of shamanistic belief systems that animals can act as like messengers or whatever. But I've tried to visualize like how does that actually work? Like say John is driving down the road. Is there a condor flying over the desert and it's like, whoa, John's flying over the road. It's time to go over there. Like is the condor doing it by its own sentience, or is it all interwoven into some just tapestry that is so profoundly complicated that we can't see where the threads begin and end?
Yeah, more the latter, in my
More the
opinion.
latter.
I mean, in my experience, and it's actually, it seems like a big question, and it could be super complicated if your brain wants to. And the brain likes to indulge. Let's face it, we love thinking about things. But I thought about this question before the call, and I'm like, yeah, how would I explain that? I've probably explained it a bunch over the years, but I always go back to, hey, just look around, like look at nature, like what does it look like is happening? What is what are you generally, if what happens for you? It's pretty straightforward, and it's kind of like, if there is and part of it is the unknowable, right? Like if you go, okay, well, there was one consciousness, the one sitting there in the void. Okay, well, what was before that, and what is that? Where did it come from? Sorry, I don't think we'll ever be able to answer that.
Right.
But let's start with that, and let's just say all that we experience now, all the multiverses, if there's a thing, all the planets, all the beings, aliens and otherwise, and humans and races of human, condors and rocks and single-celled organisms. Take the whole thing, right? Hundreds of thousands of species just here on this planet, let alone, bazillion other planets and probably a lot of other things happening. But nonetheless, if it's just this sort of one consciousness that to shamans seeks greater and greater complexity, go, oh, there's kind of an impetus there. Like there's this one thing, and then, hey, wouldn't it be interesting? And this is like us. We go to movies. We don't like to just sit around and do one thing all day. We're not stone people anymore. We don't sit for billions of years not moving. In other words, there's sort of this conscious effort to make it more and more interesting. And of course, humans have taken that to a whole new level with technologies. And just look at the room you're in. I mean, we do like all kinds of interesting creative things and make stuff and genetic engineer. I mean, you name it, we're taking it as far as we can, certainly. And maybe we're not maybe there's beings more than that than us. So if you look at it that way, it's like, okay, so everything is essentially interwoven. If nature has sought greater and greater complexity from rocks flying around space in the very beginning and to, planets and all this kind of stuff and continuing, we've been all of that. Like if you and me as these souls that have some sort of sense of identity, we're not exactly the same person, etc., physical or non-physically. We've gone through phases of, well, we were stones, probably when there was nothing but stone, and then we were single-celled organisms, and we were eagles and condors, and now we're like this human thing. And I've speculated in the past, if someone makes a robot that has a brain more capable than this and a body more capable than this that can run faster, do more things, and I died physically, this body went, would I jump into that one? Yeah, of course I would. Well, who wouldn't want to be in a faster, more interesting vehicle? And so then it would be a conscious machine, robot. This is a conscious biochemical machine neurologically, and it's just so complex. I don't think we'll come up with a robot maybe complex enough to match it per se anytime soon. But you get where I'm going. It's right. Like so yes, we have a connection to everything we've been before. The stones that I use in my mesa and the Karo tradition to help give me information, help clear energies from people, they're somehow communicating with me on a level that, no, I don't have to sit in it and go, hey. It's more like, like, it's more unconscious, right? So if a condor's flying by, my brain could speculate, oh yeah, I read animals speak, I know what that means, I know what it's, the message it's giving me. There's some of that, but I think it's the deeper energetic soul level that it's saying, it's basically giving me its vision. It's enhanced. I already have it, but it's enhancing it. It's saying you need to be able to see really clearly when you get down there, because you're going to hear something that if you miss it, you're not going to get to where you wanted to get. Oh no, I'm not a shaman, forget about that, that was stupid. Like then 20 years later the same thing happens, and I've been an engineer for 20 years. So it's really just like all of nature, as we say, conspires to enhance what we are asking for, consciously or unconsciously. And so I think there's some part of us that has to want it, has to be asking, because the way we're trained as shamans is to not shove anything down anybody's throat, to not walk up to somebody and say, hey, you need a shaman session, I can really help you, you're obviously suffering. No, we ignore it until someone goes, hey, can you help me? You go, oh yeah, maybe I can, let's try this. So I think all of that, when people ask, well, what about this, what about that theory, and conspiracy theories and all this kind of stuff, it's like, well, what would you do? I mean, it's a simple, all you have to do is look within and go, would I do that? And if you would, then yeah, somebody's probably doing it. It's not that complicated.
Right. So the way you're describing it kind of sounds to me like people with other belief systems call it synchronicity. Do you think that's an accurate the way, like you're saying that the universe sends these animal signs and everything, just these things that seem to kind of like emerge from the reality around you to give you signs that you're headed on the right way? It sounds to me like what paranormal researchers and stuff call synchronicities.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this is what's cool. You could take any belief system out there, any religion or a religion or science, quantum physics, the stuff like Nassim Haramehn's working on now, that it's like the unified field theory, like beyond quantum, and it all fits. It's all true. It's all like, that was my whole thing. I mean, I studied all this stuff because if it was true, it had to match. Like, this couldn't be true and be totally counter to this, and this also be true. Like, it just, right? But it's like, if there's a way that they fit, then it's like, oh yeah, that seems even more true. Like, I could use that. I could use this piece and that religion and the way they do that and that technique and that science. Like, yes. So absolutely, it's almost like, in a lot of ways, everything is right, in that it could be a piece of, or some layer of, this bigger picture. You could argue, that one consciousness is like the creator, that over a long period of time, what we are living in now was created through that consciousness and all of its pieces, all of its forms, and the evolution also happened, in other words, as a part of that. So it's kind of like, things that make sense, and probably are true in a way, and can be, but my Karo teachers are great in that, because they're so simple, it really breaks it all down. Like I said, they just look around, what does nature tell you, what is the primal aspect of, and it's like, they go, you could have libraries of science and religions and spiritual traditions and philosophies and belief systems, and it's like I said, the mind is like, this is cool stuff. But then they go, but so what? How do you grow corn with it? Otherwise, it's just interesting conversation around the dinner table, So they always bring it back to that practical, pragmatic, like, how's it helping your life? Are you having more more the experiences you want, less the ones you don't want here in the theater. More pleasure or pain? Are you having more fun or not? Like, do these things help make that happen? If they do, then you're good to go. If they don't, then it's just mental, like, fodder, you know? So it's that's how shamans look at it all in a nutshell. If you want to know, like, what I consider like the true shamanism, shamanism is like a way of observing the entire forest, of which there are many paths through the forest. Hey, my path, I can get from the left side of the forest to the right side of the forest faster than you can, because I've got the path, like the cool tradition or beliefs or religion that works best. Well, no, mine does, you know. But in the end, everybody's just kind of walking through the forest, you know.
Right.
And shamanism is not a singular, in my opinion. And of course, there's so many now. Shamanism, like, unfortunately, the word has become like synonymous to like QAnon and all kinds of like whatever.
Oh, right.
You know what I'm saying? Or people just, you know, tripping out on acid
Right.
And which is all good, you know, it's all part of the deal. But you know, my understanding of it, and that's one word in one language, by the way, right? But if you look at it in principle, it's an open system. It's not fixed. It doesn't have this book and this set of beliefs and this is the way you do things. It allows you to go anywhere in the forest and along any path and use any path at any given time to get done what you need to get done, to either help somebody or help yourself or whatever, to be more free and in your power and more having more fun in creation, in the theater, in this whole multiverse or whatever. So it's allowed to change, grow, evolve, take on new dimensions, if you will, new ways of doing things. So that, to me, is real shamanism.
So when you are engaging in one of your practices, whichever those may be, what do you perceive?
That's really good. You know, perception is it's kind of an elusive thing. If you can describe it really well, then you're probably minimizing it. In other words, if your frontal lobe and your voice has to create with language that the vocabulary you have to describe what's happening, it's not this anymore, it's this.
Right.
So it's kind of, people ask me, like, how does it work? What are you doing? How do you do this? You know? And it's like the training we go through, more than anything, is to get that out of the way. Is to not be, it's about John and what John thinks of what John's doing during a session. It's, I show up and follow some basic steps that are efficient way to get to the soul level of the, to get where we really want to do this work to be most efficient. And then I just like get feelings or like a movie in my head to get some information that I might be able to share. But it's that ultimate concept of the empty bone, the no mind, Mushin, Zen mind. It's like, to the extent that I want to do a good service to someone who's asking me, you know, as a shaman, the less I'm in my head or I feel like I'm doing it or I need to do it, the better. The more relaxed, the more nonchalant, the more unattached, the more I just start, you know, shaking my rattle, because that's a mythic ritual way to get me out of chatting to here to this deeper level, that I can now have all the forces of nature that come when I call, my lineages and everything that helps me do this work as a witness or as an empty bone will get it done in spite of me, with me even being in the way a little bit, right? And so, yeah, it's you know, because people want to talk about it and it gets confusing. There's a lot of folks that I've sent to the Four Winds because they were obviously shamans, and the training is important, I think. That in the middle of it would call me and go, I don't know if this is for me. You know, everybody else in my group tells me they're seeing this and seeing that. Look at that in their aura, and did you see that? And like, I'm not really seeing any of that. And it's like, oh, that's good. You're even better. Like, you just like that. The idea is to just be like, I don't know. Like, what did you see? I don't know. I mean, can you see my aura? I don't know. Like, why would I want to see your aura? What's the point? Like,
Right.
it's more, let's clear something out of your aura if it's interfering with you, or let's, adjust something, and like, let's do something with it in a practical way, not just do a reading or see, and it's like, am I seeing it with my eyes? Did you, oh, I just saw this thing fly behind you. It's like, okay, but I don't see that way. If you ask me specifically to help you with something, or if I did a left eye tracking with you to find your destiny that you prefer, and feel that and see that and bring that in, then yes, I will see it, but I'll see it like an image in my visual cortex, not with my eyes necessarily. Although that's possible too. I'm not saying that's not a thing. I mean, a lot of people, when I do the left eye tracking, freak out no matter how skeptical they are, because they see my face change with their,
Oh, wow. Really?
and it's like that. They're like, what the hell? What just happened? And I'm like, I know, isn't that cool? Because that's part of it, is kind of like, so it's kind of all, like I said, it's sort of all of the above, and there's no right or wrong way, because it happens to you and it doesn't happen to me, I'm not doing it like that. No, that, you could throw that out. So I think everybody perceives in a different way, and that's just kind of obviously true anyway. 5 people could witness the same event and have 5 different experiences of it, from horror to bliss, or interpretations of it, so that's not unusual. So yeah, when it comes to this non-physical stuff, when it comes to the working in the altered states of consciousness, the non-normal states, and which is what this is about, if you're getting to that level, there's like, who knows how many different ways to perceive it and feel it, and all of that's fine, but that's not even the point, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The point is, how are you doing? How's your, did what we just do help make your relationships better, or your work better, or your health better, ultimately, after a month or a year or whatever it took to fully integrate? That's all that matters. So, and that's all. That's the only reason I'm still doing this, is because it really helped people, like, in a very tangible way. And they go, you got to call this guy. Like, it was cool, it works somehow. But I'm not the guy that's going to give you like all kinds of interesting bells and whistles and like details of your past lives and everything I saw. I'm very minimalistic. Like, if I have to clear something from a past life to help you this life be better, I will clear it. But it's only entertainment to tell you all about it.
Right.
And I do sometimes. I mean, I'm into the entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the point.
Right.
Right. It's not about knowing it. It's about changing it, basically.
So it sounds like when you're entering this state, I guess it could be called a trance state. I think most shamans refer to it as going into a trance state. However, they induce that trance state. You're basically, sounds like you're suspending your ego, essentially. Is
really
there any
important,
danger in that? Is there any time where you start to feel yourself losing touch with yourself?
Totally. Which is why the training is so important. You have to go through the train. The training is to, first of all, as humans in a very wounded world, and a very wounded humanity over thousands of years now, even as the shaman of the village or whatever, even as the one with these gifts, like I'm living in the world. I'm still just as wounded as anyone else, and messed up in any way, shape, or form. So I got to clear as much of that as possible, of my own stuff. And a huge piece of that is all the spiritual traditions you would think of in terms of no ego and no attachment and no rigid beliefs. And you got to be willing, you got to be completely non-judging. You got to have someone come to you asking you for help with something as, that would be shocking if people heard it in a normal context, and not react and just go, okay, cool. Yeah. Let's see what we can do. We'll just clear that. And just not not be moved, not be hooked, not be, so we get rid of all of our own as shamans in training, our own, any personal way in which we, like you said, either lose our own minds because of what we're seeing or what we're engaging with, and or are susceptible to nefarious or negative forces that want to stop us and mess with us and get us to kill ourselves or something, or to just continue to be able to take the power they want, like whatever that is, as wounded beings that they may be. So it is precarious in that sense. And so the training is really to make sure that you're unattached enough, don't have the hooks, don't have affinities, so that when you open up to those worlds, and also, of course, learn to have a good team of bodyguards, essentially, in the non-physical to protect you from anything that might want to mess with you, which is a huge part of this, which is something that's happened my whole life and a lot of people I know. And so you gotta, it helps to have these, that's what these initiation rites are typically, to connect you to like a good team of like helpful beings, that when you go into this territory, you don't just get annihilated in some way, mentally, emotionally, or energetically, or even physically, that you can come out unscathed and ready to do another session, the next hour. I mean, I used to do 7, 8, 9 sessions a day, driving around Los Angeles, because this is where people were asking me to do the work. And I just showed up when people asked, and in San Francisco, anywhere in the world, frankly. Most of my sessions now, and have been for a long time, over phone, Zoom, Skype, because it's non-local. So we could do, I know you said, if I was in the area, I'd do such, like, no, we can, like, most of it is this way. Because the physical just doesn't, it's, again, outside of ordinary space and time. So it really doesn't matter to be in the same place or time. But I don't know if that answered your question. Sorry, I get going there, but
it's interesting. Yeah. I can't even remember the question I asked, man. So it's all interesting. It's all good.
Yeah, no, but that's it, man. You need to have the training and the connections, if you will, the team, if you will, to open. That's what the opening sacred space before a session is about. If we're gonna enter these realms, we better keep our wits, not lose our minds, and frankly, just this is a lot of what I'm seeing with folks now. Again, like I said, shamanism is becoming this thing where folks are now, like, without much training, if you will, or any training, or any sense of connection or understanding or lineages or protection, taking some plant medicine or something, or doing it some other way, and like getting into these states and coming out like in trouble.
Yeah, you see it a lot with
prepared.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying they're not prepared to deal with what they see, to understand it, to put it in context, to know where to put it, to know how to keep secrets from yourself so that you can function in the world with going and get your groceries and stuff without. So it's important. It's huge. It's a big deal. The training's important.
I actually just a couple of days ago, I was talking to a hermeticist who said the exact same thing, and said that like a huge portion of people that go in deep diving into these topics end up kind of wrecking their lives because they're not properly prepared for it.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, anything that rocks your foundation, and so many people have like that with some rigid beliefs and things that help them function, and very important to get through life using those things. But if you're going to do this, and if this is your thing, and you're going to open up to it, you've got to be able to keep yourself together and learn. And again, one of the big parts of our training is literally called learning to keep secrets even from yourself, because you could learn something really profound that blows your mind, but you still got to get up and go take care of your children and get your groceries. Like, you can't be tripping on that. Like I think I remember when I read the I Ching, and I was studying that, that one book, I can't remember which one it was, but it was a really good one. And I guess the story of the Jesuit priests that made their way to China got a hold of the I Ching, which if you read it, kind of is pretty comprehensive and profound in terms of everything we're talking about. It's quite a system of like shamanically of like, this explains everything. And I think these priests kind of like lost their minds and like killed themselves or something, because their system was here and it was clean and it worked and it made sense to them mentally. And then this thing like is like, oh, there's all this too. And they're like, I can't take it. That means, and it's kind of where we started. It means, does that mean everything I've done is wrong, or this system isn't right? Is my religion wrong? And it's like, no, it's completely a good system and really correct and really useful and really helpful to make your daily lives and how you treat people. So there's nothing wrong with it, even though there's all these other beliefs and systems and religions. Like, it doesn't make one right and one wrong and you're in the wrong thing. No, use it. Know that it's a great piece, and know that there could be a whole bunch of other things too that you don't have to take on or dance in or see or know. You can stay there and have a really good life. Mm-hmm. So that's where it gets, the mind just has a hard time sometimes with all this stuff. It's like I said in the beginning, like it could all be right and useful, all of them can be, every religion, every tradition, every belief system can be right and useful in its own way, and absolutely correct in a universal way, but may or may not be the comprehensive picture, may not be the whole thing, which is fraught with danger and opportunity, as they say, to explore. Like, this is not for the faint of heart or mind, to like go studying and looking and journeying into these realms. There's a lot there. I mean, there's so many things have touched on this, like even these sort of sci-fi things about traveling into black holes and space and what it can do to you, right? In terms of rocking your world and shaking your sense of sanity. Mm-hmm. So that's what my teachers say. It always comes back to, that's really interesting, but how's your corn growing? How is your breakfast? How you feeling? How's your day going?
Right. So what you say, that's actually interesting. What you said dovetailed into a couple questions I wanted to ask, which was, number one, a lot of people from, different spiritual traditions are kind of threatened by the idea of shamanism, and just different belief systems. But you already went into that. You went into that, how they can all be true in their own way at the same time.
Totally.
But one thing I'm interested in is that, certain of these other traditions, when they look at these energetic beings, you have different names for them: jinn, demons, angels. I mean, different systems have different ways that they conceptualize them.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong and one of them is exactly right and it's not right. Whatever. My point is, people like
just language. Most of it's just language anyway. Yeah.
So people look at them slightly different. But one thing that strikes me is that in a lot of traditions, like especially say Christian traditions, or to my limited knowledge of Islamic traditions, there's like very distinct hierarchies and like categories for these things. Like some are bad, and then even within the good ones, there's layers. There's like the high ones, but it seems to me, to my limited understanding, that in the shamanistic viewpoint, it's more like a natural ecosystem where it's like the things aren't so clearly defined and there are no distinct hierarchies. Am I correct in that? And could you elaborate a little?
Sure. I think that is a correct assessment, in that shamanism is very careful not to make things hierarchical. However, it makes sense that there would be grades of, right? Like, in other words, if we look at it in like a really pure sense of like, okay, there's got to be contrast for anything for this theater. And again, this gets back to how did it start and why, and who knows. But in order for us to be talking and be experiencing anything in this world, there's contrast, cold and warm, and dark and light, and pleasure and pain, and you name it, right? Like, you can't have, if you get rid of contrast, then you're back to the black void, the nothingness, whatever. And that's, I mean, I don't know how fun that would be. But the point is, like, you know, so these systems are, I think they're very cool, and they're very accurate and very scientific ways, at least to the human mind, who sort of wrote them down and created them, if you will, to like, you know, to define, to sort of explain it and define it and put it in categories, you know, like a biologist, or I don't know what you call, you know, a zoologist or something would have to like separate all the species out. And this one has this much and this one has that much. And so, yes, in a spiritual sense, or a non-physical, like I call it, you know, sense of these types of beings that exist, you know, just like you could say in a very physical world, let's say you take a group of people who, because of their wounding, tend to be perpetrators, tend to do like painful things to other people, right? And you go, well, that person just kicked me in the shins. It wasn't that bad. I would categorize them as a somewhat level 1 criminal, you know, or whatever. Like, not that big a deal, right? This person has figured out a way to like torture and annihilate, you know, millions of people in the worst sense, and get lots of sort of like relief or whatever they're getting out of it from their wounded place, which you could call evil, which you could call anything you want. I mean, I don't think any of that's wrong. I'm a believer in all of that. And I was raised Catholic, and I have a very strong Christian view, and I use Jesus as my like my main so I studied all the other religions and practiced them, and
you still use that even now in your shamanistic practices?
Totally.
Yeah,
totally, because I can take the teachings. Like, I'm one of my mentors, like, incredible man, Dale Allen Hoffman. He's an Aramaic scholar, and he's been studying the Bible and all Bibles, like every rendition, every version, every language, Greek and Latin and otherwise, and Aramaic, since he was like 7 years old, you know, and he's like 50 now or something. But it's like his understanding of those teachings and the words are very shamanic. It like lines up perfectly in this very pure sense. If you strip away man-made misinterpretations or misunderstandings, or creating a system that is for whatever other reason, you know what I mean? So like, but you strip all that away, you get like, yeah, all these beings were amazing, you know, and are amazing teachers and healers, and you could call them shamans, you could call Jesus a shaman. I mean, it doesn't matter, Mary and all that. It's like, the point is, they want to help. They want people to be free and in their power. They want people to be healed. They want people to be back in the garden. They want us to play like children in the theater, which is what shamans believe this is all about. So it totally lines up. The teachings completely line up for me. And to be able to access that and use that in a practical, pragmatic way again is, why not? Why wouldn't you? I would never reject something that works so well. And nothing, in my experience, for protecting me from the darker forces, the jinn, the demons, anything that wants to mess with me, call them whatever you want, wounded beings, nothing's helped me better than Jesus. And that's, you know, so it's like, yes, he's my savior because he has saved me on several occasions, quite literally.
That's
like,
yeah, that is so interesting, John, because I actually have a very similar relationship.
Yeah.
So that's awesome to hear. Do you still say
it's scientific,
Christian
it's practical?
prayers? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Huge. I mean, that's like Dale Allen Hoffman is teaching, and this was something I did at a young age. When I was studying the yogananda stuff, and, you know, being raised Catholic, in the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Like, you know, and I was like, you know, that's so, I don't quite understand it the way I'm saying it, the way I was taught in that English, in that particular King James, or, you know, whatever it was in the Catholic Church. it's like, what does it really, really mean? You know, like, what am I really asking? What am I really? And so I wrote my own version of it from my understanding. And I think Yogananda did something similar actually in his book at some point, because he was the same. He, you know, and in terms of appreciation of Jesus and the teachings, and then like I got Dale's work, and I was crying when I was listening to all of his stuff, because it was just like because he took the Aramaic, and he's so good at like really specifically and deliberately, you know, saying this is what it really says. This is the pure translation of what this is how, and it like made it like 100 times more powerful for me to say it, to understand it, to use the prayer. So yes, and I've there's very few things that I tell people, you know, this is like a must read or a must see but I don't care. Religion, a religion, Muslim, it doesn't matter. Jewish, it doesn't matter. Like, study Dale Allen Hoffman's stuff with the intent of like wanting to understand what was really being said and what was really happening and the energy behind it. It's not just intellectual. That language, Aramaic, like Sanskrit and a few others, has energy in each syllable and each word that matches the meaning. So when you chant it, you know, it actually does everything at every layer. It's not just a mental piece. And shamanism is about the subconscious and the soul level. And that's, so yeah, I could go on and on and on, but I just, you know, I know when something works, and I know when something makes sense, and I know when it has it has results and it has impact, and that's all that matters to me, you know. And so, but like I said, like if all you know want to be is a strict, you know, Christian, evangelical Christian, whatever your religion, doesn't matter what it is, then do it, like really do it, like do it on fully on every level, like use it the way it was meant to be used to make your life better. It works. Prayer works. There's a reason that these things work, you know, standing up, sitting down, taking this, doing this, lighting candles. That's mythic. That's the ritual ceremony, images, symbols to shamanism. That is like hugely powerful stuff to do. So it doesn't matter what context or what system or what religion you're doing it in. If you really do it, it's going to work. And that's all that, like, that makes the world a better place. You know, it makes your life better. There's nothing wrong with that. It brings heaven on earth. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I was talking the other day, I talked to Miguel Connor, the Aeon Byte Gnostic radio host, and we were talking about Gnosticism and that belief system, or that way of viewing the world, I guess. Yeah, and it was like, I actually shared an observation that I got from another guy named Gordon White. Doesn't really matter where the observation came. The point of his observation is that some of these more shamanistic approaches in dealing with like the trickster head on and all of this, I almost don't even think that you could base a whole civilization off of that belief system, because it's too erratic and too like it doesn't give you the stability that is required to maintain a society. So like even in Native American tribes, like the shaman was still his own guy. Like everybody else would go to him, but they weren't trying to live in that world while doing the daily function.
No, that's exactly. This is not the point, right? It's like so true. It's like, look, the point is to be a village, like to be in the system and living in it, like with your own freedom and power and creativity and heat and, you know, healthy and treating people kind, loving, you know, unconditional loving kindness, non-judgment, like all the good things that would make everything, you know, like more heavenly here, you know. And it's like, yeah, the role of that individual, and mostly women, by the way, you know, if you look at it as the medicine person, the shaman, is to just be on like that bleeding edge of madness, of like pushing beyond everything to see things somebody else hasn't seen yet, as a kind of agent of that consciousness, seeking greater and greater complexity. at some point there was a stone, the shaman stone, you might say, going, I'm tired of sitting here for 2 billion years not moving. I want to crawl around. I'm going to see if I can. And it was like everyone else was like, no, don't. You're crazy. It's cool being just relax. It's great. We're all happy stones. We're good. It's like, no, it's not enough. I feel the impulse to like try something new, and then next thing you know, it like transforms into a single-celled organism. It has its own problems, and it's like, so to me, that's always been the role of that agent or that individual, that being, to look at the current, whether it was like super healed and heavenly to begin with and then went sideways, and got more painful than pleasurable, or more messy or ugly, or it was always good. And but again, like, for whatever reason, consciousness wanted to continue to make things more interesting, or play around here in the theater and create new forms and new experiences. There's got to always be something that leads that way. It's an analogous story that I learned from, my teacher Alberto, was like the snake, the serpent came up to the edge of the cliff and looked down and saw the body of 1,000 different, serpents that had jumped off the cliff before it, and perished, and said, well, I've got to do it. I've got to try, and jumps. And then halfway down, sprouts wings and becomes, an eagle. And it's like, okay, now we have eagles. In other words, there's always that one intrepid aspect of creation that because it just has to, pushes beyond what is, and may die doing it, may perish, may not make it, but at some point makes the way for the rest. There was a story of the Americas, of the Native Americans, when the ships came over, right, from Spain and Italy and all the original first European, expeditions, and most of the village would look out on the ocean and not see the ship, because there was nothing to register that possibility. It'd be like alien ships coming down, and like most people wouldn't even see it because it just doesn't fit anything in the mental construct to that point in their evolution, if you will. But the shaman, squints her eyes and, oh, wait a second, what the heck is that? Hey, that's weird. There's this thing out on the water I've never seen before, and is the first to see it. And then goes to the village and says, come here. I'm gonna shake my rattle. I want you to look out, squint out into the ocean. Maybe you'll see it, and just sort of like, and then all of a sudden there's a new neurological wiring that happens that allows everybody to see it.
So could that be the nature, do you think, possibly, of a lot of the things that we call paranormal, or things that are existing here and we just haven't trained our minds to see them yet?
It's the first time I've thought of it that way, now that you mention it, but it's like, yeah, that could be why. It very well could be. And that there's those who for whatever reason, be them the shamans, quote unquote, of their neighborhood or whatever, will see it, sense it, feel it in some way, know it, and tell other people, and they go, well, you're crazy. And of course that's always been the problem with being this, but yeah, could just be that we haven't, and maybe for good reason, right? And when it comes to the paranormal, I think it alludes back to that notion that keeping secrets from yourself, isn't this enough? Isn't it enough that me looking at you in your room, I see you and I'm talking to you and I'm focusing on you and you're focusing on me out here? Do we really need to see the 20 other different kinds of beings that might be floating around in the room or messing with you. You know, like one of my favorite TV shows, The Ghost Adventures, with that Zach Bagan and all that. They have all the tools and equipment that show the stick figures. It's like, it's on your shoulder, and it's like, oh my God, I feel it, you know. And it's like, do you want to live? Would that be practical to like not only have to deal with the neighbor and the basic stuff we see, but to also have to deal constantly with the unseen? I mean, I just think it would be too much. I just don't. I think it's set up perfectly. We've set it up. Somebody, consciousness in some form or many forms, has set it up pretty cool the way it is.
Okay.
And then there's those of us who want to look deeper. We're curious.
Or almost have to look deeper. It's almost like a compulsion, right? It's
Maybe
like you couldn't stop even if you wanted to, right?
True. To the extent that it's helpful to the village that it serves.
Right.
Hey, there's all this stuff keeps happening in our village. We can't figure out what it is. There's nothing physically happening. And then you call in the shaman and they go, oh yeah, there's these spirits that are messing with you. Now I could do something about it to improve your quality of life in the village. Boom. Practical, pragmatic, a reason, a service that's being asked for. And to the extent that that person's got the ability to come and do that, means because they've been training, they've already been practicing seeing these things and dealing with them before they were asked.
Okay. All right. So we are nearing an hour. So I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
One's a big one. One's going to be a smaller one. So then last big question. Talk about this evolving consciousness. Different forms are seeking greater complexity. Do you think, and obviously I know you can't answer this for sure, but do you think there's an end game? Is there a goal? Is there some like place we're trying to get to where it'll be like, okay, now we have achieved this purpose and now we can chill in whatever that is? I don't know.
Totally. I get it. Yeah. That's the question?
Yes, sir.
I've thought about it a lot, right? Because I have mentally and in some cases talked about taking it all the way. Like, where does it end? I think I might have wrote about it a little bit in my book in some way, but it's like, what would that end game, like, to me, just like rationally, right? Like very sort of engineering minded. If there was an end game, what would it look and feel like is the first thing I ask. So if we're heading towards some sort of goal of being like completely enlightened or some form of like total awareness or oneness even or anything, it's like, then what is that? Who is that? And what do they do next? Or does it just chill? Like, do we all achieve oneness and then we're in a state of like 100% bliss all the time? And to me, no, that's impossible. Because without contrast, without pain, you don't know what bliss is. So to me, it's either got to keep going with no end, because to me, the end would be not like a really awesome place to just hang out and chill, because that makes no sense. Like Jesus saying, the kingdom of heaven is within. It's not some place you go chill. It's like it's either happening for you right now in this moment because you feel good, or you feel like hell because you feel horrible about what you're seeing. You know what I mean? Like, so it's that concept to me. I can't imagine there being a end game. But you could like look at the Matrix. You could have like ending. You could have like, okay, well, if the Earth explodes, which it will, or whatever, the sun will explode in 2 billion years, well, then what? Well, it's like, okay, well, there may be another planet, another dimension. There's maybe somewhere else we go that's a whole nother form of being. Is Homo sapiens the end? I doubt it. There'll be other evolutions that continue to, with greater complexity. And so my sort of answer is no, it just keeps going. If there's an end, then it won't matter because we won't be around to talk about it.
That's a good point.
Or even think about it or feel it, because it would be nothing.
Right. That's actually pretty close to about where I've gotten with it, but I'm always hoping for the diamond dagger that's like, this is it, dude. This makes sense, just like, bam, this is the goal, dude. This is where you got to go. Right.
No, and I appreciate that. I think that's not a bad way to motivate. Like, I think it's kind of I'm with you. I'm like, hey, like I said, what else could there be besides Homo sapiens? What would be the next cool thing? And what would be, if I did go non-physical, be like other realms of experience that. So I'm all for like some goal, some apparent end game. I mean, but I feel like you decide, like, in other words, if you're kind of interested in that, why don't you sit down or meditate or journey and imagine like your ideal end game? Because I think that's what creates it. I don't think it's an absolute, like, who else, if not you, then who? And if it's like the Matrix, then it's some like overlord that's, if that's the case, treating us like pawns, and this doesn't even make sense to be having this discussion, right?
Right.
But if there's not that, which I don't think there is, it's just us going, well, where I don't know, dude, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go next year on vacation? Like,
right.
let's decide. That's the point of being you as a shaman, and me. I'm pretty sure, and me playing this role. It's like, that's kind of our job, is to journey and find where we may want consciousness to go next.
Right. Okay. No, yeah, I love that answer, man. That's awesome. I love that. So, all right, last question.
Yes.
Kind of two questions wrapped into one, but it's really the last question. And this one's much easier to manage. So, what is the one actionable thing that you could tell people to take from shamanism to add to their lives, or just a practical, simple thing to improve their lives? And then number two, what are the services that you offer and that you would like to let people know about if they want to pursue them with you?
Okay. Yeah, the first question. Wow. I would say the most important thing that people can do to improve their life is to recognize that there's a layer beyond all the things you can do with your mind, because all the self-help stuff in the books, and you can meditate, you can do all kinds of psycho-spiritual practices, and those are great, and exercise and eat well, that's all good, right? And be kind to people, be loving, etc. But the one thing that makes that harder to do than it should be is the mythic and the energetic level of your being. And the mythic level is accessed through ritual, ceremony, image, symbols, art, music, poetry. So the most important one thing people could do is find a way, and it could be through your own religion, going deeper, like I said, with it. But come up with a movement or a something you wear or something you do religiously to pray, as a form of prayer. So don't just think your prayers and say your prayers. Make a picture of your prayer. Make a vision board. We call it a destiny altar. Blow into a stick and burn it if you're having trouble. Use your breath. All the breath rituals are awesome. We use breath to move energy in shamanism. So you know what? If you're having trouble, breathe. It's very cliche, but it's just breathe. Honestly, that's probably my best answer. Find a way to use your breath as a ritual to clear that negative thought, to focus like athletes do, or other forms of ritual. And I have all that on my website. I have it under the post-session homework, because I do have my clients do mythic pieces to match what I do with them on the energetic deeper level. And so there's videos of tools that are right there. And the way that people if they want to work with me, if you want to do that, then I would just go to my website, which is shamanjon.com, and there's a video on there, on the front page that I did that describes everything, the work, shamanism. It was only supposed to be a half an hour, but this, I tend to go on and on. So I'm going an hour, but you can watch that. And if it makes sense, then you just send me an email and we'll set up a time to do a session. And it's that simple. But at the same time, I put a lot of this stuff out there that even if you didn't do a session, you might find useful bits to help, with stuff and recommendations like Dale Allen Hoffman or the Four Winds if you want to go deeper into any of those things. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome, man. All right. Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate your time. This has been a great conversation. Can't wait to share this with people. I think this is going to be interesting and useful to people. So, man, it's just been awesome. I appreciate it, dude.
Well, it was really fun, and I'm really grateful for you reaching out. This is really, really good stuff. So
awesome, dude. That's a great thing to hear, man. That's a great thing to hear. So,
anytime, Jeff. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.